Welcome to the In-Tune Guitar Academy. We are here at Alcorn Studios in Ottawa, Canada. In this episode, we have the honor and pleasure of interviewing Tim Bedner. He's a guitarist, performer, composer, and published author. Remember to like the video and comment if you want, and also subscribe to my channel. Click on the bell to make sure you get the notifications for any new videos that come along. Tim regularly appears at several public events throughout Ottawa, private events including corporate parties, weddings, birthday parties, and public events such as concerts and fundraisers. He's been a teacher for over 2 decades and is currently director of guitar ensemble at Carleton University in Ottawa. He gives private lessons here at Alcorn Studios. He holds a Bachelor of Music from the Berklee College of Music in Boston and a Master's of Music in Jazz Performance from Duquesne University, that's in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, yes.
And he also has a CD of original music called Of Light and Shadow that was released in 2012. That's available for download on his website. And he's compiled and edited and co-authored a book called A Common Sense Approach to Improvisation for Guitar. It's a Mel Bay publication, and he co-wrote that with Joe Negri. Thank you, Tim. Thank you for being here. And thank you for taking the time to appear on the In-Tune Guitar Academy. It's a real pleasure to welcome you.
Thanks very much, Frank, for having me here. Real quickly, what I liked in the bio that you did, I was director of the guitar ensemble from about 2007 to just before the pandemic hit.
Okay.
When the pandemic hit, everything shut down, and because of low numbers in the guitar majors at Carleton, so I'm no longer the director of, or no longer doing guitar ensemble. I'm just teaching privately.
Okay.
Or teaching performance studies.
Well, it was quite an experience you must have had there.
Well, I had never thought I would embrace technology the way I did during the pandemic. I love to be in person and teach in person, make handouts and so forth. But then when, of course, the shutdown happened and everything got locked down, it was, the starving situation. I better learn technology, so I started doing lessons on Zoom, and SyncSpace was another vehicle I used, another technology here in Ottawa.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've never heard of SyncSpace before. So just a couple of questions. How old were you when you started playing guitar?
I was a late bloomer with guitar. It wasn't until my late teens that I started playing guitar.
Oh, really?
My parents had moved to a new school district, and I was in 11th grade, and I didn't know anybody. There was a local rock band in the school that I used to see practice at the end of the school day, and I thought, boy, it'd be great to get to know these guys and join the band. That way I could get to meet people right away. And sort of started there playing, Eagles songs, Kiss, and Led Zeppelin, and all kinds of stuff. So it was early. It wasn't until my later 20s, mid 20s, that I got really serious about it.
Okay. Well, that's pretty impressive to start that late and get to the level that you're at right now.
Thanks.
It reminds me of Tom Morello, a guitarist for Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
I took a master class of his.
Wow.
And he started late as well. He started in his late teens also.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I often envy the guitarists that start when they're 6 or 7 or 8 years old. They have so much more ability and motor control skills, and just they're rewired differly, I think, starting out.
There's so much more to music than just reading notes. It's physical, mental.
Yeah.
So I guess you were self-taught, I guess?
I was, for the most part, back in the day, back in the late 70s, whatever guitar magazine I could get a hold of, with the instructional stuff in there, and then occasionally I would get like a video or a cassette of somebody and learn. But basically, learning songs from, playing with other people, but, 8-track, learning from an 8-track tape was hard.
It's not like YouTube.
No, boy, could you imagine having YouTube back in the 1970s? Man.
So who were your early influences as a guitar player? Which guitar players did you idolize?
Well, it's because of a friend of mine who sort of helped me out with Bruce Grendler. Jimmy Page was sort of first on the radar. And then, of course, I remember listening to Steve Miller, we're going back to the pop rock days. But a big thing, I remember having a few Led Zeppelin albums. Physical Graffiti was one, and I remember Kashmir was I love da 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 da.
Oh, it's very symphonic.
Yeah, very, very much so.
Yeah.
So Jimmy Page would be sort of top of the list there.
You mentioned Steve Miller. I think Les Paul was his godfather. So
really?
Steve Miller is an amazing guitar player. Not many people know how good of a guitar player he is. Yeah. So having Les Paul as part of your lineage.
Gosh, that's great.
So at what point did you decide to make music your career?
So when I was in high school, when we moved to this new school district, when I was in 11th grade, there was a vocational school not very far away from where I was going to school. So I went into a vocational tract, if you will, and I was in industrial electricity. So I became an electrician, and I worked construction for 6 years, and nothing wrong with it. I was making good money, but just wasn't my cup of tea.
No, it's not for everybody.
No. So from previous garage band days, there was a friend of mine who was a drummer who actually got into Berklee College of Music. This would have been probably 1983. He got in, and he kept in touch, and he says, man, you got to come up here and check out this scene. It's just an amazing place. And I made the jump. So when I was 24 years old, I sort of stopped doing the construction thing, opposed to family wishes.
Right.
They thought I was going cuckoo by pursuing music. But anyhow, nonetheless, I was 24 years old, and it was 1985 that I got into Berklee. Luckily at the time, I was able to get in, and the tuition was quite reasonable back then.
Okay, I guess that's changed.
Oh my gosh, I can't see how folks can afford to go to a place. Yeah, you've got to be really, really good to get scholarships.
And what is it like to, what's the admissions process to get into Berklee?
Well, at the time I got in, I basically, answered a few questions. I did a little essay about what I was interested in, and I think there was a little theory test that I had to complete. So I had taken some lessons and had a few books, so I was able to sort of understand a little bit of what was needed. I probably got in with the skin of my teeth, as they say, and after that I realized, wow, am I in over my head? But with diligence and practice and a focus. At that age, I wasn't, 17, 18 years old and just like, let's go out and be social. I was staying home and practicing and reading and playing with as many people as I could.
So there you go. You have to practice.
Yeah, you have to practice. Yep.
To get good, you have to practice.
Absolutely.
So how did your studying music at the bachelor level change your perception of music?
One of the things that blew my mind away, well, first off, I'm from a very small town in Pennsylvania. And, jazz and it had its own culture there, which was fine. A lot of bluegrass and country music and rock, classic rock and stuff. But being in Boston at that time, where you had people from all over the world, from all parts of Europe and South America and Canada and the United States, coming to Berklee, and a lot of them were some of the best from their country. And I was overwhelmed with all of this great talent. So first off, bringing my awareness of, wow, there are some phenomenal musicians out there. And also the structure, what Berklee sort of taught me was the importance of the language, the music language, learning how to communicate the language, being able to spell things out, identify key centers, analyzing tunes. Also, being aware of the master practitioners that came before, that set up levels of proficiencies for us to sort of go for and try to achieve and maybe go beyond. What an amazing experience. I was very, very lucky to go there.
Yeah, sounds like very mind expanding.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. So later on, I think it was in the 90s that you went to Duquesne to earn your master's?
So I left Boston, my wife and I left Boston in 1993, and we moved back to my hometown. My wife is Canadian, and she grew up in Windsor, Detroit area, and Anyhow, Boston, just the saturation. It was a lot of folks that do music, at least during my time, would often have to get a day job in order to support their music, because it's a tough go. You're competing with your teachers and other great players for gigs. So we moved back to the small town that I was originally from, and we made a go of it there. And at that time, I attended a workshop at Duquesne University, a summer guitar workshop. And I was blown away with the camaraderie and the level of people there, and just the great attitude that these folks have. In 1998, they offered me an assistantship. I was a TA for 2 years doing my master's degree. So that was a great experience there. So we moved to Pittsburgh after spending a few years, 5 years in central Pennsylvania, where my folks are from and where we lived. Moved to Pittsburgh in 1998, and then we stayed in Pittsburgh until 2006. My master's degree in jazz performance was great. I had a chance to study with a local legend, Joe Negri. If you've ever watched Mr. Rogers, Handyman Negri would often come in and play guitar with sort of a guest like Yo-Yo Ma all kinds of folks. Joe was just an unbelievable mentor to a lot of people. Joe grew up in the 1930s and 40s, so having a teacher that was from that era, that sort of knew the lineage from Charlie Christian into bebop, Joe taught me a lot about how to organize the guitar. Joe also exposed me to the cage system, which was very important.
All right.
But a really important part of Duquesne was being a teacher's assistant, where I was teaching a lot of classes. So I got a taste for teaching at a university level. I was teaching guitar to music therapist. I was teaching private lessons. I was helping co-direct a guitar ensemble, and also helping recruit people into the guitar department there.
Okay.
So
I remember seeing something about the cage system on YouTube channel, and so cage is C-A-G-E. So when you
C-A-G-E-D, caged.
Oh, okay, caged.
Yeah.
And so when you're soloing, you're supposed to form the shape of those chords
Yeah.
on the neck. So can you explain
Well,
that a little bit more?
what's great about the cage system is that it helps you organize the guitar. Berklee, there's nothing wrong with Berklee's system, but Berklee's system had a series of stretches and sometimes very complicated fingerings that were really difficult for some folks, especially if you're playing a larger scale instrument. Big stretches would often create...
Turn a little bit more.
Oh, yeah. Okay, there we go. Yeah. So, but what cage system does, these chords that you're playing here, C chord, an A chord, a G chord, an E chord, and a D chord, those were 5 different keys. What the cage system does is helps you unify one key using those 5 forms. So if I play a C chord using an open position, that's great, and we all know that system, but I play a C major using an A form, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. I have this A form. I have a C major G form. Remember this G chord shape, but if I do this fingering, and remember, folks, I'm playing a 7-string, so that's low B. You'll have to bear with me here.
We're going to get into that.
So this G form here, same C scale. Look at how I have the chord shape as same chord shape, different type of voicing. E form. D form, all C major again. And then C closed form, it's an octave higher, this one.
Okay.
Cage, so what Joe taught me about the cage system was within each of those forms, I have all of these chords and lines without having to sort of say, okay, I've got one shape for this particular chord or a couple. Well, I've got 5 different forms. So what a great way to practice something. Diatonic chords mean that I've got all under my fingers here. Rather than doing this, that's nice to do that, but look at how I can stay in one cage form. C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G 7, A minor 7, B minor 7, flat 5. Same thing with the G form. C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G dominant 7, A minor 7, B minor 7, flat 5. So look at the benefit of ergonomic movement. I'm staying in an area. I've got all of those chords, arpeggios, lines, all kinds of possibilities. Cage system really changed my life. One of the greatest practitioners of caged is the great Joe Pass.
Oh, right.
Joe Negri, my teacher, was also friends with Joe Pass, or back in the day he was called Joe Passalacqua, from Johnstown. I think the parents worked in the steel mills. Anyhow, Joe used the cage system exclusively, and we all know the kind of music that he's created. So yeah, cage system.
Interesting. Thanks for that demonstration. It reminds me also of a demonstration I saw. Paul Gilbert showed how you can copy the top part of a scale on the top few strings and the middle few strings and the bottom strings. They just visualize that they all look the same because it's A all the way down the neck. So it's important to just know the entire neck.
Or the cage system really helps with that. If you do an accelerated learning technique like verbal visual reinforcement, if you're playing something on the guitar, C scale, play the note names. You're firing more neurons in your brain rather than sort of doing it quietly. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, C, D, and so forth. Saying and playing is good. So Paul's onto something.
Oh yeah, for sure.